Good afternoon to you, or good evening, or good morning, depending on when you're going to listen to this. It's Tuesday, September 9th. It is 2:09 in the afternoon. This is the All 32 Pod. I'm, of course, Mike Giardi. We are a proud member of the CLNS Media Network, and, of course, brought to you by the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America. Bold statement, but true. That, of course, is PrizePicks. Download today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first 5 for first-time users. Play responsibly, of course. PrizePicks. Run your game. So this is going to be the setup normally during the course of the week for me on a normal Sunday game. You see, Monday, we debuted the Pat's Interference podcast with Andrew Callahan and yours truly breaking down the tape from the game after getting a chance to digest it for hours upon hours of watching the game on Monday. I will come back to you on Tuesday with 4 thoughts that I wanted to share about the game and moving forward, and then take a quick buzz around the league. I know some of you wondering where Will is. I mentioned this on the last pod. That podcast is not dead. At least Will and I together are not dead. It may resurface in some other form, but for now, this is the path we're going to go on. I like to break this down into 4 quarters. So the first quarter, and I'll hit you with right away, is the Patriots got outcoached in that football game. And when you went back and watched it, it just sort of hammered it home that they were better in bigger moments and more prepared than the Patriots were. And I'll just start with the offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly, and what he did, especially in the third quarter, to Patriots defensive coordinator Tyrell Williams. We know Tyrell Williams wants to be aggressive. He wants to come after you. And they took the blitz to a whole nother level in this game, 43% of the time-ish, depending on what you want to believe, 40 to 45. I had it at 42. Let's just call it 43 for the day. They wanted that. And after struggling a bit with it in the first half, although granted there was a long touchdown pass to Trey Tucker in the second half, they took real advantage of it and created a whole bunch of explosive plays. There were 9 20-plus yard passing plays in the game. That is the most in the National Football League for week 1. There was also a 19-yard passing play in that game, so it doesn't quite fall into the explosive category, but certainly would qualify. And when I looked at what Tyrell Williams did in the game, I can't help but think that Chip Kelly and Geno Smith smiled big every time they brought extra people, especially once they settled into a pattern, because if there's any quarterback in the league that loves to see the blitz and isn't going to take the check down and the easy throw and the hot route, who wants to hang in there just a little bit longer and make the big play, it's Geno. He believes in his arm, unlike maybe very few other guys in the National Football League. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, we don't think of Geno in that same respect, but that's how Geno likes to play. And you saw some incredible tight window throws from him. But I think he did a terrific job, and Chip Kelly did, of preparing him for what the Patriots might bring and what Williams might bring in his first game as a defensive coordinator in the league. And that was just something crazy. And then I want to also kind of go back to the sort of chess game that he played with Williams, in which Patriots were living in the 5 DBs, 4-2-5 defense, 5 DBs, and the 5th DB was Marcus Jones as your normal slot receiver. So not the big nickel. We only saw Kyle Duggar for 7 snaps, Del Pettis for 6, and that was mostly in dime. This is our base now. This is what we're going to play. And though you look at the numbers and say the Raiders didn't run the ball very effectively, there were moments in the second half they had runs of 6, 5, and 4 on scoring drives, field goal scoring drives, producing drives that made it 17-10 and 20-10, where when you contrast it with the other side and the Patriots, who basically said at halftime, we're not going to run the ball anymore, and only attempted 3 rushes in the second half, just goes to show you, like, hey, they had less success actually running the ball than the Patriots did, but they still stuck with it, and it produced some positive plays for them in bigger moments. And the Patriots try to counter by going with their base, and I'm talking the real base now, with 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and 4 DBs. And what happened was when the Patriots went into their base, the Raiders threw it over the top of them. I have a couple examples of that. Let me get to it here. Michael Mayer at 14-10. Patriots came out in base. Good drive starter. Geno hits Michael Mayer for an 11-yard gain. Patriots stayed with the same group. This time actually lined up in a 5-2. There was a lot of 5-man defensive fronts from the Patriots in this game. Christian Ellis delayed to see if Ashton Jeanty was going to sneak out of the backfield. Jeanty set up as a pass blocker, so Ellis attacked. This was the play where they had the trips to the right, very tightly bunched. Patriots are playing man off of that. Robert Spillane is out there in the bunch, and Spillane did a real good job in pass coverage last year, and I thought he's had some moments in this game, but he gets exploited big time here, in part because he allowed himself to pick his own teammate in Jalen Hawkins. What they did was Mayer ran straight at a Spillane from this bunch trips. Spillane backpedals. As he backpedals, Brock Bowers, who Jalen Hawkins is manned up on, cuts underneath him. You're going to say, oh, it's a pick, it's a screen. No, this was just a really nice design play. And actually, Spillane is the one who picks his own guy. And Hawkins gets picked off. Bowers comes across, wide open. You remembered, it's a 38-yard gain. Immediately takes you from, I think they're on their own 27 on that play, to Patriots territory. They convert later with a field goal. Just a massive play in the game, and just sort of, hey, you want to do this? We're going to counter with that. And when they did it, they were successful. Ensuing possession, Pats once again broke out their base defense, and I wrote this in Boston Sports Journal. Zone coverage on Carlton Davis's side went for a 27-yard gain. Again, another big play against that 4-man or 5-man defensive front, but again, with just 4 defensive backs on the field. Jones was off, no Duggar, no Pettis, and they took advantage of that in that opportunities. The speed that they had on the outside caused the Patriots some problems, which, look, you're not going to be perfect all the time, and obviously they missed Christian Gonzalez. And as I mentioned, I think at the end of last week, that I became a little bit more concerned about Gonzalez's absence as the week went on, because I felt pretty positive that he was going to get Brock Bowers in 8 to 10 or 12 money down situations. And then when you saw Jacoby Myers going off in that game as well, he would have been another chess piece that Terrell Williams, Mike Vrabel could have said, you know what? On this play, we're going to double Bowers. You go inside, you cover. You go inside, cover Jacoby Myers, and we'll take him out of the game. Would have eliminated some certain things in that concept. Patriots, as I mentioned, punted on the run game, which is crazy because they didn't want to overload Drake Maye. I think the whole part of this summer was, let's not put everything on the kid. He's only, making his 11th or 12th start. You want to be able to run the football, which they showed that they could do in the summer. And then, of course, in the game, struggled to move people. Offensive line did not do a good job in that aspect. And then Josh McDaniels said, the hell with it. We're moving on. And lastly, let's talk about the Mike Vrabel decision to punt on 4th and 10. Patriots down 10 points, about 5 minutes to go in the game. It was 4th and 5. They lined up as if they were going to go for it. Will Campbell gets whistled for the false start. After contemplating it for a second, Vrabel sends out the punt team. In the moment, I didn't have a problem with that because, quite frankly, I was feeling as though it had completely unraveled on Will Campbell. He'd given up the strip sack 2 plays prior to, then the false start, his second of the game. And to me, it just felt like the whole group was kind of looking at each other like, felt like they let things snowball on them or compound in that situation. So it made sense at the time. It would have made more sense, though. As Vrabel said, you can't go back and look at hindsight. Bryce Behringer with just a horrific punt, 21 yards. Vrabel totally called him out in the post game. You expect a better punt there. And then on 3rd and 20. So they've got the situation. Even though the punt didn't go as long as they wanted to, they've got him at 3rd and 20. You're going to get the ball back. They send more guys. I don't know why you blitz there. I don't know why you want to bring pressure there. I mean, rush 4, drop 7, keep everybody in front of you. And then Carlton Davis, who is a veteran defensive back, decides to bite on a double move and gives up a 36-yard completion to Dante Thornton. Like, that was it. Essentially, game, set, match. It's all over. Very disappointing. Otherwise, a pretty good game from Davis, but you've been in the league for a long time. That's not something that can happen. And Vrabel sort of said that too, I believe on Monday, basically like, hey, we got to be smarter than that in that situation. That's not something that you want to do. Maybe give a little bit more cushion in that regard. I'm dropping all my notes here, so stick with me for 1 second. I do, before I hit second down, I do want to talk to you about PrizePicks, and they're doing that thing that they do, especially early in the year. They give you some gifts that you want to take this week on the 14th, and then again on the 21st. They are giving you basically gifts. Travis Kelce, half a yard. you're going to take more on that. And of course, if you forget how to play the game with PrizePicks, one of the greatest daily fantasy sports apps around, the greatest daily fantasy sports app around, it's more or less on 2 up to 6 players to win 1,000 times your cash, and they're giving you one basically for free. Travis Kelce, a half a yard. I know he's not the old Travis Kelce, but Travis Kelce's going to get a half yard. Or a week from then, Pat Mahomes is going to be at a half yard passing. Again, that's a layup. You don't have to worry about that. That 14th, the game for the Chiefs is against the Eagles, so not an easy opponent, but I'll guarantee you Travis Kelce's going to have more than half a yard. So you just got to pair that with one other thing, and you can win money. Again, always play responsibly. Be careful with your money. But just download the app. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first 5. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first 5. PrizePicks, run your game. I won my suggestions last week. Just throwing it out there. Thought the Patriots are going to win. That was a whole different scenario. But in terms of my PrizePicks, victorious. So, look at me. That doesn't happen very often. Let's get to Drake Maye, because it's Tuesday, but it's always May Day, because so much of what the Patriots are going to do is going to be centered around him and what he brings to the table, like his development, his growth, his play. Are they going to be a winning team or a losing team? And so much is going to be attached to him and his performance this year. We talk about the potential for him being a franchise quarterback. He has all the tools. We just need to see those tools come together. And week 1 was rugged. I thought he left some meat on the bone. And basically, as I mentioned, first of all, they put too much of the offense on him, and they should not have done that. And I think there will be a concerted effort to stick more with the running game in Miami than what happened here in the first game, unless, of course, the game gets lopsided in the wrong direction. Vrabel said the run game was abandoned because they weren't their best plays, but the Raiders, as I said, had less success, and they still went with it. So you have to do that. I counted 14 bad throws from Maye. That's inaccurate throws, which when I say inaccurate, not missing by miles, I'm talking about wrong hip. And there were multiple occasions where he completed a pass, but he put it on the wrong hip, and that prevented yards after the catch. Stephon Diggs on the 3rd down, driving right before, I believe it was Borregales' field goal, first made field goal, where had he put it on the right hip, Diggs is shifty enough to turn and get the extra 2 yards, 3 yards that he needed for the first down. Instead, ball's on the wrong hip, ties him up a little bit, and he gets dropped on the spot. Patriots have to bring in the field goal unit. There was a play down by the goal line. He rolls out to his right off play action. He's got Austin Hooper coming cross formation. Now, they scored on the drive, so you say it doesn't matter, but he threw the ball behind Hooper. Hooper makes the catch and then gets stopped short of the end zone by a few yards. He put that ball in the spot. Hooper probably trucks into the end zone, no problem. So there's situations like that where this is what the great quarterbacks in the league do. The ones that get the yards after catch. It's not just having the beast on the receiving end of it. It's also the quarterback putting their guys in the best place possible. You can say that's nitpicking, but that's how you play quarterback at a high level in this league. So I had the bad throws, poor decisions, of which there were several, including, I think, the interception where I know he got hit when he threw it. I think he had him earlier. That would have prevented maybe the ball from coming out the way it did, or certainly the contact maybe having an impact on him. There were a number of open throws that he passed up, and then on plays which we scrambled and either gained very limited yards running the ball in scrambles or got short sacks. But when you consider 14 is the number I had, over 50 dropbacks, that's pretty significant. And again, too much put on him, but he has to be better. I'm not expecting it to be flawless. What I'm going to be watching and what I'm not concerned about yet, but what I will have, and I mentioned this to Callahan last night, that I'll have in the back of my brain as we go forward here, especially for this next one in Miami, hesitation. How many times, if you watch the game over, if you DVR'd it, or if you have the access to NFL Plus or whatever it's called to rewatch the games, how many times did you see him start to throw and then stop, clutch, and then like reset and move on to the next thing? And when you do that with him, at least in game 1, panic's not the right word, but he sped himself up. And so what you want to see is trust your eyes, trust the read, the pre-snap read, trust it as you're dropping back and you're making that full on. Now you're looking where you want to go with the football. Trust that it's going to be there and let it rip. he had some unbelievable throws. The fade stop to Kayshon Boutte was phenomenal. There was a dig in which he threw it to the wrong hip, but he threw it to the wrong hip on purpose because he would have led Boutte into trouble had he let him with the football. Terrific. Nice job on the sideline to Diggs. There was the slant, a key third down to Diggs as well, where ball on the money. But those plays were free and easy. Like, just let it go, let it go. So to me, it felt as though we're looking at someone who's thinking a little bit too much. And it makes sense, right? Vrabel is his first time with his head coach in a real game. Josh McDaniels, first time with him as his offensive coordinator. He's got Ashton Grant, the quarterback's coach. They've been telling him all off season, protect yourself, play on time, get rid of the ball quickly, don't try to play hero ball. And I felt like there were times where he wanted to play hero ball and he didn't because that voice was in his head. And I think he's got to figure out how to balance that. And I didn't think this was going to happen right away. I've been sort of saying that for a month now, like that this was going to take some time for him to grow comfortable in the offense. I didn't think he looked super comfortable at points. And so that's something that I'm going to file away. I also want to read this quote from Vrabel. And bear with me because it's kind of a longish quote. This came from Vrabel's appearance on WEEI on Monday morning with the Greg Hill Show. I want to give them proper credit there. And I kind of clipped it in the middle, but was basically talking. He was asked about Maye and his demeanor and what was going on. And he said, I think that he wants to be at times perfect. I need to get past that. We all have to get past that. You need to be precise and not perfect. And if you make a mistake, it's the reaction that you have to the mistake and everybody sees. And then they're like, oh, wow, that was a mistake. We have to clean our reactions up. Our responses have to be much better, and then getting into the flow because you really see good timing, accuracy. And then we see some other misses. I don't ever concern myself with that. That was unbelievable. I just want the better performance, more consistent, and continue to grow as a leader and make sure that there is a command to what we're doing, that this is a situation, this is the play. Those are the things I'm focused on. And it was funny because I think several of us made the observation after Drake got off the podium on Sunday, he didn't have the chest out. And he had the chest out last year, even when, as we know, that was a debacle of a season. He didn't have that same sort of vibe. There's a lot on him this year. He's a captain. There's that whole thing. Maybe he felt it a little bit. Maybe he felt as though he let the team down. We'll talk to him again Wednesday. Again, you're watching this on Tuesday. And that's a fair question, I think, to ask him about how he was reacting in the moment and if he feels a little bit more weight to what's happening around him. My third quarter, if you will. I got asked this question a couple times. Why didn't they use Maye's legs more? And, there were a couple design runs there for sure. I push back against this. I'm not one who wants to sign up for 8 to 10 runs from Maye, designed runs. There's stuff that happened during the course of a play. Hey, play breaks down. You got to get out of there, go, and use your athleticism to your best and then get down and protect yourself, which he didn't do a good job of last year. But like the QB power or just QB zone read, keep stuff like a couple, sprinkle it in there, but don't make a living off it. He's not built like Josh. He doesn't have the same ridiculous athleticism of someone like Lamar Jackson. And quite frankly, Jalen Hurts is a tank. Not as fast as either one of those guys, but like physically, he can take a bit of a beating. So Maye's not there in terms of his body yet. He's not a grown man in that regard. I did wonder why McDaniels didn't utilize some more boots. This is when I'm watching the game. I wrote it down like, there should be a couple more boot actions here. And then when I went back and watched the game over, that would have been suicide to call boots. Why? Because the edges were not respecting the run at all. They were playing pass. They would have had eyes on Drake Maye the entire time because they weren't worried about that run action. They had handled it, especially with their interior and what they did to the Patriots interior, the guards in particular, Mike Onwenu and rookie Jared Wilson. So Malcolm Kuntz and Max Crosby would have been bird dogging Drake Maye and would have had clean shots on him. Maybe getting in a situation where he takes a bad hit or, he feels pressure, throws off a back foot and maybe makes one more mistake in terms of the turnover factor, as he had the strip fumble that Patriots recovered, and then of course the interception. Vrabel was asked one other thing, like, do you feel like you put too much on him? And maybe I should have put this in the previous segment, but just just work with me here. And he said, that's something we're going to have to look at. So will there be a more streamlined plan for Drake? Will it include using his legs a little bit more in this game? Again, I'm sort of resistant to that, but if they feel like that's how they get him into the game and settle him down early, there are quarterbacks that do feel like I need to get hit first, Josh Allen being one of them, before that happens. But in the game against the Raiders, especially as the game wore on, no thank you. Do not do that. Lastly, fourth quarter, they need better from their four-man pass rush. So I talked about the blitz number being between 40 and 45, depending on where you want to go with it, who you want to buy the numbers from. Harold Landry did a good job in the four-man rush, had some pressure off of that. Milton Williams had a decent day. They didn't get much from Christian Barmore as a pass rusher. 2 pressures, I think, from Kayvon Chason and 23 pass rush snaps, and then nothing from Keon White as a pass rusher in the game. Didn't play a ton, especially in passing downs, obvious passing downs. But if they can get better from their front four, that means that Terrell Williams doesn't have to feel like he needs to dial up that many pressures. And look, there's a lot of teams now that are living in that world. Brian Flores, obviously, Vance Joseph in Denver sending the house. When you have good corners, you feel like you could probably do that, although not necessarily that Minnesota has good corners, decent corners, but not certainly what the Patriots would have when they're healthy. But to me, if they're capable of getting just a little bit more juice from the front four and not having to game so much stuff up, you'll cut back on some of the big plays, which is an emphasis every single week, and now is going to be probably starred twice based on the 9 explosives that they gave up to the Raiders as they go into Miami. And Miami has some of those capabilities, although they certainly didn't show it in week 1. And then I think, too, when you're in those blitzing situations, putting Jalen Hawkins in man-to-man coverage against a wide receiver, which is what happened on the 0 blitz on the touchdown to Trey Tucker, the first touchdown of the game. I mean, if you don't get home, that's the sort of risk that you take. So it's not even safe. Just play it smarter with that. But it comes down to getting a little bit more production to me out of the four-man rush. They do that. He can slide that number down into the low 30s, mid 30s. And I don't know, that's, 4 to 6 less blitzes a game, protects the back end a little bit more, prevents some of those big plays. That's what I'd want. I want to talk to you quickly. This Thursday is September 11th. Boston joins 9/11 Memorial and Museum's Tribute in Light, born in New York, as twin blue beams over lower Manhattan. At dusk, landmarks around Boston and Cambridge will glow blue from City Hall, Fenway Park, and the Prudential Tower to the Zakim Bridge, the hub on Causeway, Berkeley Performance Center, and more. The tribute's now in its 2nd year and spearheaded by our friends at Gupta Media in Boston, again, sponsored by our friends at Gupta Media in Boston. Take a minute to step outside, look up, and remember the lives lost and all those who are forever changed. Boston remembers. And just quickly on that front, I've been watching the documentary series on Netflix on the hunt for Osama bin Laden. And there's some disturbing stuff in there, obviously, for any of us who lived through that. Some video that you don't necessarily ever really want to see again. But good reminder, and I think that's step outside, take a moment. And that's that. All right. To lighter moments. Let's just get a quick buzz around the league, right? Because that's what the All 32 does from time to time here. Overreaction from week 1. God, did the Chiefs look slow. And I know Rashee Rice is suspended. And then Xavier Worthy, this is what happens when you draft a guy who's 165 pounds at wide receiver. Like, yeah, there's incredible speed, and you saw some flash plays in the second half of the season especially, but like dislocates his shoulder on the 3rd play of the game running into Travis Kelce. You can say it's freak. I say he's just slightly built, and this is going to be something that you're always going to have to watch with him. And that left Patrick Mahomes throwing to Tyquan Thornton, who had a long catch in the game, Juju Smith-Schuster, who still can't run. The knee is still not any good. And look, Kelsey's not the same player. So the lack of explosive ability with that offense is jarring. And they talked all offseason. Mahomes has been insistent they were going to be a team that threw the ball back over the top. They hadn't been doing that in recent years. His yards per attempt have come way down. The big play rate has come way down. And you're not going to be able to do that with that receiving core. So they're going to have to keep their fingers crossed that Worthy can come back sooner rather than later, although as of Tuesday, there was some talk of surgery. And then obviously Rice is out for 6 games. And they believe he can be a top 10 receiver and that he was on his way last year before the injury to the knee. We'll see what that looks like when he comes back. We'll see if he's trustworthy because he's had all kinds of off-field stuff happen to him over his brief NFL career and even for his time at SMU at the end. But that's on my radar. I thought they'd take a step back this year because you're just not going to win as many ridiculously close games as they did last year. But I thought Kansas City, I thought the Chargers kind of kicked their ass a little bit in that game. And the lack of speed was galling. How about Sunday night, right? I come back after the Patriots game. I start watching the game over because, Monday's going to be crazy. And then we're going to do this here on Tuesday. And then, okay, I'm going to catch some of the Buffalo game. I turned it off at 40-25. I didn't see the comeback. I had to watch it on the NFL app the next morning. All I can say is this is not news breaking. Josh Allen is a bad MFer. Holy smokes, that's that dude. Some of the plays that he made. And look, the Ravens were certainly complicit in their demise in that game. The Derrick Henry fumble was massive, which really, the dude had a ridiculous game and he's awesome, but that was a tough play for him. And they butchered, they should have downed a punt at the 1 yard line. I think it was Trenton Simpson, ended up his elbow touched the goal line, brought the ball out to the 20, like huge difference. Much more room to give Allen to work with, and he took advantage of it. And then, of course, Prater, who they just signed to the active roster Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it was because of their Tyler Bass's injury, their normal kicker's injury. He hits the game-winning field goal. Curious to see how the Ravens bounce back from this one because that's a difficult loss in the opener, and I think it meant a lot to them after losing in Buffalo last year in the playoffs. They're still incredibly loaded. They're probably the second most talented team in football behind Philadelphia, but that's one to watch. And I'll stick on the Bills for this. They once again look for a closer on defense. They signed Joey Bosa. We know Bosa's had injuries. He's productive when he plays, but he just doesn't play a ton. Missed a lot of the spring with a calf injury, suffered pretty much the day he got there, first day of practice. They couldn't stop the run. They struggled stopping the pass. They look like they have problems at safety. They're small in the defensive front, and I think that the Ravens certainly took advantage of that, and maybe you can do that more than anybody because you have a freak in Derrick Henry at tailback. But another one of those things that will this come back to bite them in January or February if they get that far is do they have enough players on that defense? Are they big enough and stout enough? Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, hard to make those fixes during the year, kind of what you got at this point. Maybe you can make an addition at the trade deadline, but that is where they're at right now. And lastly, he's one of my favorite players coming into the draft this year, someone that when I was doing my columns for Boston Sports Journal on the draft during the offseason leading up to, so many people were like, Egbuka is the best receiver in this class. Travis Hunter may be that guy one day. People like, Chris Sims thought Kyle Williams was the second best receiver in the class. There were other people that had different guys. I love Jalen Noel, but people kept telling me Emeka Egbuka is the most complete wide receiver coming in. His numbers were never awesome at Ohio State, but they were always good, that he was already polished and ready to go at the NFL level. You wondered a little bit about the speed. Well, Baker Mayfield loves him, talked him up all spring and summer, talked about him being like already one of those guys that he puts his trust in. 4 catches, 2 touchdowns in the opener against Atlanta. Some teams just have the knack of picking the right wide receiver, something that the New England Patriots and plenty of other teams have had problems with over the years. But Tampa Bay got it right with him. Terrific player. And I'll give you one more note. Went over and watched the Jets-Steelers game. Aaron looked really good. That marriage with Arthur Smith, at least for 1 week, looked quite solid. Justin Fields looked very good for the Jets. Again, still a bit of an inconsistent passer. I know what the numbers look like. Had a couple throws that they've got to be better. Sort of as I talked about May, there's a handful of plays there. He only threw, I think, 22 times. So May dropped back through 46. So you're going to see a difference in sort of what I would deem the mistakes or things that needed to be perfected. But good start for them. Their first-round pick, Armand Membu, clean sheet at right tackle in the game. That offensive line, even without AVT, is going to be really good. And if the Jets are going to be a frisky team this year, the offensive line is going to have to be a big part of it. That is going to put a wrap on this edition of the All 32 pod. I'm supposed to read something else here, and I'm going to do that right now. For those of you listening to the show, we ask you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching on CLNS, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new show drops. I appreciate you bearing with me for 30 minutes on the program here in the All 32. I'll be back later in the week. Special guest. We had Steve Weish last week from the NFL Network. This one, Patriot fans are going to know him well, and I think his insight for this week going into Miami and playing against that offense is going to be a good one. So please stay tuned. Always remember to like, listen, subscribe, tell your friends, tell their friends, and we'll have a great time here. I'll see you at the end of the week.